No, because
she said that like people request him.
there's two.
Yeah.
There's two in that school. I know because I went to PTA and I was like,
Yeah.
one, two, two. There's two, and so yeah.
It's good that there's these two. But she said, oh yeah, some people request the male because it's so rare.
Yeah, and I wish I could get more young men. That's going to be part of my work here at TRGB.
Right.
Because
it's part of our marketing effort too.
Yeah. Yes, I do work with the males at UTRG at UT Austin. And so
cool.
yeah, one of the, Victor Science was on my dissertation committee, and so but yeah, that they can do it as well. But sometimes they hear, I think the messages are stronger for young men, but they themselves are rock stars. Like you're saying, they're requesting them, and the kids are gravitate towards them. And it's always good to have young men in a classroom because they dispel this myth that teaching is women's work, that men don't have the same capacity to care as well, because they do. They have the same drive to help the community, to help the kids, but sometimes I think they listen to the stronger voices, and so or they're on a really quick path to administration or anything else.
That's true.
If I could get I always have one or two in every class, and that's what it's been since I was a student. But that's why I wish I could target, and so they can see it as a worthwhile occupation as well.
Cool. Any other questions?
I have one question, kind of going back to some of the initial conversation around just like, I think we've seen a lot as we visit classrooms in Texas, like a real shift of trying to change the way we talk about like these like deficits versus like assets that students bring, like when you talk about multiple languages and things like that. Why is it so important that we really shift the way that we just like frame that whole conversation?
Well, because students have a lot of knowledge that they bring with them already. I mean, no life, even as an adult, has been misspent per se. There's some knowledge, it's just usually not what's always tested. I mean, the home language, the culture of the home, all the oral practices that students bring, the oral histories. Sometimes we don't. There's a wealth of knowledge out there that we don't always tap into. Like even with the college students, like in Raquel's class, for example, I asked them to bring a proverb from home, or like a dicho, or a refrán is what we call it, and they brought them. They asked their parents, "Oh, I know one that they always say, right?" But to see that, like I get goosebumps. But to see that, like included in the classroom, why not? Why can't this be a jumping point or like a starting point for a lesson to use what they already know, what they bring? Because I think for the longest time, we've always focused on what we can test, and some of these things we don't always have a way of testing. And even bilingualism per se, we can't always test. We can test things in English, only in Spanish. But the students bring, like I said, a wealth of knowledge from there's this community cultural wealth that they bring from their home, from their families, and just like we can say to the students, oh, you can't speak that form of English because it's not the canon. If that's all the parents know and that's all they know, then we ask them to leave it at the door, and that sometimes it hurts the student. It's like deep at their core, at their soul, and school needs to be a place that welcomes them, where we can use what they know as a way to build on it, and so we're adding to it. This whole additive versus subtractive as well, because I think for the longest time we had what we need students to know. For example, like even for textbooks, we tend to think. My daughter read Of Mice and Men a few weeks ago, and she knows that there's other books out there, books about students that reflect her experience, her identity, her culture as well, that we can also begin to start using so that we can hook them. I know that when I first read a book that had code switching in it, I said, wow, how can they get away with this? Like, this is amazing. And I could see that in my students when I taught, even in middle school. Like, I had books that they saw themselves reflected in it. And those were the books that, for example, they came later on and asked me, I want my brother to read this book. What was the name of it? And so, seeing things not necessarily like, oh, you're culturally deprived, you're linguistically deprived, or, but no, let's look at what they do have and then use that as an asset to build on. So.
What was your favorite refrain?
Oh, I actually wrote a short piece. I'll share it with you by email, because so my dad had a lot of them because his grandmother was this repository. Like, she had one for everything.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so and in this article that I wrote like last year, My mom, for example, I helped my friend mow his lawn. I came home, I was really proud when I got home. I said, Mom, guess what? I helped Antonio mow the lawn. And she said, oh. So, and she said, Candil de la calle, oscuridad en su casa, which means you're like this lamp that shines on the street, like a street lamp, but at your own home, there's darkness. And so she didn't have to say anything more. And like, because, in that moment I just reflected, okay, what does this mean? Like, I said, oh. And so she didn't have to scold me or tell me anything else. That, that's it, right? And so my dad would also say some of them, and sometimes you would sit there and you'd think about it, and you'd get it later on, because it's all cultural, right? And social cultural. You learn it in that context, in that moment, and it makes sense. But my dad had a lot of them.
So did you mow the lawn after that?
Yeah, after that, when I mow the lawn, every once in a while I remember that, just because it was, yeah.
I remember that movie, that French movie that came out in the early 2000s called Amélie.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
At the end, they were like, we don't know if this guy's a good guy. How many like refrains does he know? You remember that? She's trying to vet her friend's boyfriend. She's like, she would make him fill in the blank, and because that's how she could tell. Okay, if he knows a lot of whatever we call them, like sayings or whatever.
Yeah,
then he's a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, because and part of what I get my students to understand is because, well, in English we have all these idiomatic expressions, right? Like hold your horses, going bananas, right? And we also have proverbs, but I think, like at least in the Latino culture, we have those, but then we also have like dichos and refranes, and there are, like, you recite them, and there's this like oral history sense to it that gets lost sometimes, especially when there's this really quick shift into English. And it's sad because they always say, like, when an elder dies, it's like a library burns down, and really that's sometimes grandparents will pass away, and that all this knowledge, oral history is like, it goes away, it goes poof, right, at that moment. And so it's, all these games that even I feel guilty. Like, I haven't taught my kids, like, to play, I mean, there's like Red Rover and Tag, that's like really superficial, but we had like amazing games that we played together outside when I lived in Mexico, and like La Víbora de la Mar, right? You might know that one.
She's
It's
from
like,
Colombia.
oh, okay, no. So, but they play it sometimes at weddings, and so, but there's like this whole like game that goes along with it. And when we moved here, we just kind of hang out indoors, and so that was a big difference that I noticed. And
So
so,
interesting.
yeah, so some of it, we're moving to more individualistic and not necessarily
Well,
community.
we have screens to like take all that time.
Yeah.
That used to be boredom.
Yeah, yeah.
My son recently learned my technique when I was a little girl. I don't know why we would do this with my girlfriend, but my best friend growing up, whenever we were bored, we would just make a list of all the options, and then we pick one, which sounds really simple, but like it always worked. Like we write down house, restaurant, ride bikes, and so my son does it now, like with his babysitter or whatever. It's like, because there's boredom creates creativity. It creates that space for it, and I don't think kids have as much space as they used to because there's so much entertainment. But
Yeah. We're
somebody made up that game at one point. That
Yeah.
game